Welcome to the Immutable Mindset podcast. Today's guest is someone who's relentlessly pursued his passion for gaming and creativity while embracing new technologies and pushing the boundaries of what's possible in the world of Web3 and the Metaverse. Starting with his engineering background, he went from working with Formula One, contributing to Lewis Hamilton's track strategy with the Mercedes team, to becoming a pioneer in the gaming industry in the Metaverse. He's the CEO of LandVault, previously known as AdMix, where they've managed to raise over 40 plus million from top VCs and built an impressive team of 120 architects, designers, and developers. LandVault has created metaverse experiences for renowned brands like MasterCard, L'Oreal, Heineken, as well as Web3 projects like World of Women, Mutant Ape Yacht Club, and Alien Boy. Sam's entrepreneurial journey has taken him through numerous successful ventures, including Rogue Trader, Yacht, and BFI, where he gained valuable insights into user engagement and business strategy. Moreover, he's the owner of Good Morning Web3, an education hub with 30,000 members that serve as a bridge for brands entering the Web3 space. And lastly, as an early Bitcoin investor and a metaverse landowner, Sam invested in over 20 Web3 companies and was recently ranked as the number 18 LinkedIn influencer in Web3. He's been featured in a CNN documentary, Decoded, and covered by media outlets like Fast Company, Venture Beat, TechCrunch, Financial Times, and NASDAQ. And I could keep on going. Sam, welcome to the Beautiful Mindset, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. That was quite an intro. I like it.
A lot of our guests come on. Sam, how you doing, man? A lot of our guests come on. They're like, "Can you just follow me around?" And I want my mom to hear this, just so she knows I'm actually doing something. That I'm actually.
I do have a mobile mic, and I'm pricey, but I'm worth it. I'd be happy to follow you around.
All right, let's get into it, gents.
Yeah, so there's a lot happening in our world, and I know there's a lot of places we could take this conversation, but I really want our audience to get an understanding of Sam and just a little bit about your background. So would love to kind of start with what I thought was really cool in doing my research was your experience back with Formula One. I'm curious, what inspired you to transition from the world of Formula One to the realm of gaming and technology? Was there anything that you saw that created that inspiration?
Yeah, I mean, I wish there was, a smooth transition or logic. The truth is, after working there for about 2 years, which was an amazing experience, I wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to be in control of my own destiny. I've always had this idea that, I should eventually create my company. And at the time, I didn't have a big idea. I didn't have any enterprise experience or any, specific expertise in any vertical. So I felt that naively that, gaming is something that everyone could do, which obviously this is not the case, right? This is an industry like any other. They are experts, but it feels like, it would have been more difficult to build a SaaS tool for an industry as I could try to build things with small teams. We were building hyper casual games, so really simple type of games. And back in 2014, this was very new. And this was really when the App Store started to take off. And it was more about marketing and user acquisition than actually game development. So for me, this was, a stepping stone into the world of entrepreneurship without, having a big idea or an idea that could change the world. I just thought, I'm going to set up a small studio. I eventually was able to hire a bunch of people. And yeah, that's kind of how it started, as just building content, figuring out how to monetize the content, how to distribute it. And through that experience, very quickly, I've seen the limitations that creators had and the lack of tools to help them monetize the content. And that's the idea that eventually led to AdMix and then LandVault.
Let me ask you a question. Let me jump in here for a minute. And I find this really interesting. I'd love to get your perspective on it. From a general talent perspective, you do a lot of hiring within your organization too. How much do you weigh folks who come from that quote unquote kind of hybrid background, like folks like us who have Web 2 and Web 3 and bring that old school learning and foundation plus the new Web 3 knowledge versus true native Web 3 folks? Do you give any more weight to folks who bring that additional perspective based on your own experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to find people with only Web3 experience unless they're like,
19,
5 years old. Just because this was not a thing until recently. So yeah, I think it's really important to have that balance. There's a lot of people in the Web3 space that understand the concepts of Web3, but Web 2 is not all bad, right? Of course, we can improve it, but there's a track record of building scalable applications, of focusing on user experience, of making things easy and better for the consumer. Of course, we can think about how we can decentralize that and give more power to the users and insert that philosophy. But still, when it comes to product development, tech, I mean, we are building on top of shoulders of Web 2. Web 3 is not a complete write-off and starting from scratch. So yeah, absolutely, that experience is key. And being able to integrate the principle that made Web 2 successful with the Web 3 ethos, I think this is really where the next generation of product is going to win in Web 3. Not just tech, but actual product. I think there's not enough product people in Web 3. There's a lot of tech people that are building for other tech people, but to get to mass adoption, we need simple products. We can't keep writing our 12 seed phrases every time we open a wallet. Like the average person is not going to do that, right? So we need to find better user experience. We need to focus on the consumer instead of focusing on the tech.
And interesting to that, right now, I think apropos to that is definitely the gaming industry. When I think about like that next level of adoption, yeah, I know we've been saying it for years upon years that gaming was that next thing to bring the next billion, but it actually feels like we're on the cusp of it making sense. In terms of you mentioned in your last answer, talking about how you felt like the gaming industry was something easy to get into. That's what I felt the same way. I've actually built games in the sandbox myself. So it is a low barrier to entry, right? How do you think that low barrier to entry affects innovation and creativity within this space and our ability to make this make sense?
Yeah, good question. I think this is exactly what our vision is at LandVault today, right? We are building projects for brands. We're helping big brands like we also have a monetization SDK. We're also building tools to help create content faster. So everything that we do is to push the metaverse and to democratize the access to the metaverse and create that, what I call the WordPress moment, which is a moment where everyone is able to create, to deploy, and to monetize content. Right now, it's still too expensive, right? Our average order value is about $200,000. So for brands, it's not a big amount of money. But for an individual, for a small business, to create a presence in the metaverse, they're not gonna fork out 200K. Like that's way too much. What if a website costs 200K? Like it wouldn't be the same amount of activity on the internet, right? The only reason why it works is because eventually tools made it simpler, made it easier to create a website. Create a e-commerce website in 1995 costed about $1 million. Actually, Jeff Bezos raised $1 million seed funding.
That's crazy.
and that was just to build his website because he needed the servers, he needed to build his own payment processing. Like there was no building blocks, there was no infrastructure. You had to build the infrastructure. Yeah, you had to build the infrastructure, exactly. And that's where we are in the metaverse today. You've seen it by building yourself in the sandbox. You have to put literally cube after cube after cube. You can't use existing infrastructure. You can't use existing templates to help you. So, the average person is not going to do that. And I think in order to create a real reason for people to get in the metaverse, real use cases, we need more content. And for more content, we need the content to be able to build in a quicker way and in a cheaper way. And only technology will help with that.
So let me ask you a question. One of the things we do with the show and having two hosts coming from different perspectives is to provide that perspective to our audience. Kevin is the DGen. I'm the very knowledgeable noob who's actually becoming pretty knowledgeable in the last year or so. But for anyone out there, they hear the word metaverse thrown around a lot. How does Sam Hoover define metaverse? How would you explain metaverse to my mom and dad?
Yeah, we like to say that it's a 3D version of the internet. So the metaverse is not really anything new. It's the convergence of two trends: gaming, so 3D content, right, rich experiences, and blockchain, which we see as a key. The financial backbone of the metaverse is the fact that it's built on top of the blockchain. And so those two trends are converging and basically creating a three-dimensional version of the internet where you'll be able to meet friends, you'll be able to buy product, you'll be able to
Yep.
book your next holidays in a more immersive way.
So is it going to replace in real life experiences, or is it to augment and amplify and improve?
Yeah, no, nothing. That's another myth, right? You know, when you say you work in the metaverse, people are like, "But what's wrong with the real world?" Well, no, it's not about that. There's nothing like the real world. Nothing will ever, beat real interactions and being in the same room with other people. But we already spend more than half of our life in a digital way. I mean, on a day-to-day basis, I talk to more people online because of work, right, than physical. And I think that's the case for most people if you're actively working. And so the metaverse is not meant to replace the real physical world. It's meant to enhance the digital world. There's a lot of things that we do on the internet that is fairly experiential. So again, it could be shopping for non-commoditized product like clothes or cars. It could be next holidays. It could be hanging out with friends. It could be watching videos. All of these things could be done better in a 3D environment. The experience would be better. Just like it's better to watch a video than to watch a picture, right? It's more immersive to be told to listen to content that is on a video rather than reading. The next stage is going to be 3D. It's going to be the same gap going from video into 3D.
Yeah, I really, to the way you say that, I really see it as the gamification of the internet. I mean, obviously it's that next phase. I like how you put it, the 3D, but it's really us gamifying it. Okay, so the layers, right? So now we're talking about the metaverse. We're talking about kind of where we're looking to where it's going in gaming. Now add blockchain technology, crypto, and NFTs on there. How do you see them shaping? How do you see those technologies added to the metaverse, shaping the future of gaming and what we'll eventually see?
Well, those technologies are really there to create a new economy. So whether you have blockchain or not, the user experience, what you see visually, what you can consume, is not that different. But the blockchain is the financial engine for that new economy, which we call the ownership economy. Mm-hmm. So right now on the internet, you are basically you're using platform. So if you're using Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, you're just a user of the platform. And what's interesting with Web3 is the concept of ownership. A lot of those platforms will have tokens that effectively represent shares, but not traded on an actual exchange, but just basically offered by the company. And anyone can, by using the product or by buying those tokens, you basically become an owner in the product. And the great thing about this is not simply for financial gains. It's more that it aligns incentives between the platform and the users. And we've seen time and time again with Web2 platforms where initially platforms are very kind to the users because they're trying to attract more users. So it's the attraction phase. And then there's a point where they move into the extraction phase. Yeah, because you need to make more, you need to make more revenue. And when your growth is slowing down because you already have 1 billion users, what do? You try to extract more value per user. And eventually the creators get, pushed out, and the incentives between the platform who wants to grow and the user, because they're sharing, generally they're revenue sharing. If one gets more, the other gets less. What's interesting in Web3 is everyone is incentivized by the growth of the token that they own. So everyone is pulling in the same direction. If the platform does well, I do well as a creator on the platform because I own tokens that represent a fractional ownership in the platform. So to me, that's an interesting model, and that's really the difference with blockchain.
Do big brands embrace this? Do you think that big brands are going to embrace sharing this? Sharing the wealth. I mean, hey, me and you, I'm right there with you. I wish and pray that every single person is their own creator. I'm not a fan of watering down the words of, NFT to a digital collectible. I think that education is incredibly important. And that's, understanding why we're doing this is understanding what we've done wrong so we can do better in the future. So I think I forgot what my question was. Adam, can you help me with my initial question? I'm sorry.
I think I got it. Is what is the incentive for big brands and big companies?
Yes,
right?
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah,
Kevin's brain works faster than his mouth. For all of our new fans listening there, just bear with us and don't worry. We use our guests to get to the point here.
I just got off COVID.
We reverse engineer the podcast here and have our guests actually answer their own questions. That's what we do.
I literally had COVID yesterday, guys. Give me a break.
All right, we have COVID
wow,
fog right now.
that's still around.
It's a real thing.
Right. No, but I can read your mind, so no problem. Next question, you won't even have to ask it.
Wow,
But
this is
yeah,
the
no, I
metaverse,
think
people. Ready Player One, let's go.
You're right that in the short term there is no real incentive to share wealth. If all you're trying is to maximize your own wealth, sharing it obviously is not in your interest. But we can see, with platform, let's take Facebook as an example, right? Like the platform now is not doing too well, right? They've extracted a lot. They used to have an ecosystem of games on the platform. They kicked this out from one day to another. They said we don't support games anymore. Then we've seen what happened with Instagram. There's limited business models there. And when there is an alternative, people eventually start leaving. Facebook is still somehow growing because of
it's the
all
boomers.
the new markets, right, that they're targeting. But if you look in America, in Europe, no one really uses it anymore. So if you look on a 10-year window, the interests of the platform and the users are just not aligned anymore. And having a Web3 model, I think, is a real insurance to ensure that your company will be around for decades, if not centuries, because the interests are always aligned. So I think it's a long-term play. And I'm not saying that they should tokenize everything and take no value, but there could be some kind of value exchange in the middle where you can still incentivize users to be along with the ride and look all in the same direction.
I think the way that, and maybe you can explain this to the audience. I think the way that you guys at LandVault are thinking about new ways of new advertising methods for brands, so that it's not so in your face, are incredibly interesting. Could you give our audience a little bit of just a purview as to kind of LandVault and what you guys are doing in terms of in-game ads and how you're working with the gaming industry, and then I'll continue on with the kind of
right. It's not like old school banner ads in your face all day, right? It's all about,
right.
Instead of like just blasting people with ads, it's about giving them opportunities and partnerships and adding value, right?
Yeah, no, exactly, and that's actually interesting because so the story before LandVault, the company, so we left when I was building games, right, creating content, and very quickly I realized that as a creator, as a builder of content, my options to monetize content were limited, and specifically, most of the time, unless you build a great economy in your game, which is very difficult, you're forced to use advertising technologies, and the tools at the time that were available are pretty much the same that are available now. And these are these really annoying full screen pop-ups in the game that you can't skip, interstitials, rewarded videos, so you get something back, but still it's pretty much forcing your hand to watch the video. You can't skip it. And honestly, now you spend more times watching ads than playing the game. And I just felt that, as the content becomes more immersive, more and more people play games, this just is just a very bad user experience, and that people wouldn't, if they had the choice, right, they would decide to use something else. Absolutely. And I remember thinking that it was pretty similar to banks in a way. Like, banks have terrible fees if you try to send money abroad, but you don't really have an option until challenger banks come through. And then it just makes sense to use the bank that has the best fee. And to me, that was the same kind of model. You had this status quo in the advertising industry. Everyone accepted that there would be ads. But what if we could create a model where you would still power free to play content, but instead of being forced to watch an ad, it would be more like a sponsorship, like the shirt of your avatar would be branded, or maybe the banners around the stadium would be branded. So it's still there, but it doesn't interrupt the game.
It's part of the gaming experience.
It's part of the gaming experience, exactly. And there's so much real estate, and that's where I started thinking, even before the metaverse, that all these walls that have been built, all these games, right, that are consumed for literally billions of hours, this is real estate. You have virtual houses, and you have the virtual streets in GTA and virtual stadiums. This is real estate that could be monetized using the technology that we built, which is basically integrating virtual billboards, screens, or even 3D objects within the gaming experience, and trying to create new ways for creators to monetize, not just on top of their game, but actually monetizing the real estate within their games. So that was the idea of AdMix. And this is the company that we took from 0 to close to over 100 people, raising about $40 million in the process. A lot of challenges to basically revolutionize advertising when you have big companies like Google and Facebook that make billions and billions a year selling, traditional formats. But that kind of led us to the path where we are now, which is, looking at the metaverse as the ultimate way to actually fulfill that vision of merging brands and content together.
Sam, let me jump in and ask you a question here, a personal question. You're scaling a company from 1 to 100 really quick. That's a really quick ramp up. What was one of those big personal challenges that you had to overcome or develop as a leader?
Yeah, I mean, this is my first real tech startup. I used to run this game studio before. We had a few projects, but it was much smaller scale. And that's always my ambition to build something big and actually, a category defining company, as we say, something that will stand the test of time. And that's still, we'll see if that actually happens. We are definitely in the right area to do that. But at the beginning, I was obviously doing everything, right? There were just myself and my co-founder, and we were building a proof of concept. And eventually, when you start scaling a team, and now we're 160 people globally, if we include all our builders, metaverse builders, you have to really make sure that, you delegate work and focus on the things that really grow the company, work on the business as opposed as in the business. So just from a pure, day-to-day perspective and how my time is broken down in the things that I'm doing, there's been a huge shift. And, the type of days that I have today are very different from what they were a few years ago.
Did you find that it was a challenge for you to relinquish control over certain elements of the business, or was that something that came naturally? Because I know for a lot of business owners, one of the biggest problems is control. Am I okay letting somebody else do this? Am I okay letting somebody else run with this? Was that a challenge for you, or something that came pretty naturally? Cool.
Apologies, we had a bit of technical difficulties on our side.
Did that glitch on your end while we're moving and editing? I heard a little bit of glitch. Did that come through? Well, I mean, we'll listen in post recording. I caught like the seconds of that. So editor note there. We'll double check on that one. I'm sure it was the most profound statement that I'll never hear again come out of the lips of Sam ever in the history of the world, and I'll be lost forever through the sewer of history.
Yes, you will. No, but kind of keeping it in the personal section since Adam kind of took it here. While researching, well, we're recruiters also, right? And so
is that what we do?
That's also what we do.
All right.
So
just so we're podcast hosts here and DJs. Sorry.
A lot of our consultation, right, is with candidates and clients to that matter is step by step how your experience here leads to experience there and how kind of it all builds on each other, right? And so, you started a company called, I think it's called Kout. Is that right?
Yes.
Kout.
Yep.
Yes. Which was to really gamify the shopping experience. So from what I understand about it, you were trying to work with brands to create games, kind of like the way that is it like kind of like the way Netflix is doing things.
It was on demand.
Yeah.
Right. To kind of engage and monetize experiences.
Yeah.
I'm just curious how that experience there led to you figuring out and understanding and thinking about how to engage and monetize experiences in the metaverse?
Yeah, this definitely contributed to the learning of gamification, as you said, and how games can help brands achieve their objectives. And in a way, the metaverse is pretty much that. It's creating a different experience to showcase product or showcase services in a different way, hopefully a much more engaging way, which is able to take the users along a journey and experience that they will remember, and therefore create an affinity with the brand and make them more likely to purchase eventually. And CAD was one of the projects we did with the gaming studio. And yeah, that was basically the idea. It was mini games at the point of sale where basically you could win discounts, and we would only show the games if the user was likely to not, actually go through with the purchase process. The economics of it were quite difficult. We were playing with very small margins, which is why eventually it didn't really work out at scale. But I think, this was really the first foray into this concept that you could use games, you could use gaming mechanics to help brands achieve their objectives. So it was a valuable, lessons to be learned.
And what are some unique opportunities and challenges in emerging ad tech, within the metaverse structure, that you see out there?
I mean, the opportunity is, as I said, to me, it's, all this 3D content that is being created, right? It's pretty much infinite real estate. These are spaces that are valuable because people are consuming them, right? Whether they're playing a game in GTA or getting in the metaverse, if you are there as a user and you see content, then it's valuable in itself. And these are areas that, could potentially be monetized to help content creators generate more revenue. So I think from a pure scale, obviously the number of users in the metaverse today is not huge, but it is growing. And there will be, when we remove the friction, when we create more use cases, when we add more content, to me it's a no-brainer that more users will consume these environments, because we have 3 billion people that are playing games every single day. So people spending time in 3D environment is not new. The metaverse is not creating that behavior. It's already there. Yeah. We just need better reasons for people to go there. So when that's the case, the tech stack is not web anymore. We're talking about 3D content powered by game engines. And so all the tools, the technologies to monetize websites, to help creators make money, to measure success, the tech stack just won't apply to the metaverse. It won't apply to that 3D environment. So all of that will need to be rebuilt. And that is the infrastructure that LandVault is building. So from a pure, company opportunity, this is what we see, right? We want to be the infrastructure that powers the next phase of the internet. Of course, there's a ton of challenges. That's I think a part of working in a new market. From the adoption in terms of users right now, the platforms that are still very much walled gardens and that should be more open to enable more content. The tools to build content are either too difficult to use or too closed. And so that is just, creating, I guess, issues that are to be expected with the new market. And the other thing also is, the inertia of the advertising market and how brands are used to spend money and looking at and measuring success, right? Brands are measuring success by clicks, mainly by number of impressions, and they're looking at Web 2 metrics. Whereas, in Web 3, for example, we can have huge conversion rates, even though the total number of people is small. So, changing the minds and trying to convince brands that there are other ways to measure success that would really be beneficial for their businesses is also a big uphill battle.
So is gaming the Trojan horse of adoption and onboarding, or is there another golden goose kind of use case that we haven't defined yet? Right? Like, how is it going to be shopping? Is it going to, e-commerce, direct to consumer commerce? I mean, what is it going to be to get the masses to engage in this three-dimensional, altered reality?
I think entertainment, it could be gaming. I think, virtual events, concerts. Obviously, it's not as good as a physical concert in the real world, but these are some of the experiences that historically have drawn a lot of people.
Big time.
So, I think it's, there's an audience for everything. We just need to create the right incentive, the right experience, and also create something that is not just marginally better than what you can do on the web, but that is 10x better because the friction is just too high to overcome.
That's experience. But we're so early stage, and I take a look at my kids when they come home from school. They have their screen time, and both of my kids are on Roblox and Fortnite, and I see them engaging in this world. I see them purchasing using real money to buy virtual things, and I always go back to Gary Vee. And one of the early lessons I learned from Gary Vee was watch what the kids are doing, watch how they were engaging, watch how they're interacting, because that's the next generation. That's the trend. And when you see the masses of kids and young folks doing this, yes, the kids still play outside and shit. They're still doing that. But how they engage, that's what we're focusing on. That's how does Sam get his alpha? Where are you consuming? Where are you learning? What rocks are you lifting up?
Yeah, pretty much that as well. I've always said that, people say like, oh, the metaverse will be a thing when my grandmother can use it. I'm like, no, this is not who we're building this for. We're building this for the other generation, right? And so, yeah, I've seen my nephews, using Fortnite as a social media tool, just meeting their friends and chatting there. I've seen
that's their chat room, right? That's their chat room.
Is the chat room, exactly. And I've seen others, other kids just, as you said, being engaged on Roblox and creating content for hours and hours. So it's looking at that, but also it's learning the lessons of Web 2 and what worked first on the internet. What were the first use cases, the first e-commerce websites? What came first? Was it the infrastructure? Was it the use case? So looking at that, we're able to draw parallels, and that's kind of what is defining our roadmap.
Do you consider yourself a pioneer?
I mean, I hope that one day that's what people would say. I think it's a little early for now to say that, but I was, pretty early in blockchain, definitely early in the metaverse. But we need to make sure that what we're building actually helps with the adoption of the metaverse. So that's one of the objectives.
So just to continue with that thread for a moment, and Kevin, I hope you don't mind me jumping on here for a second.
Go ahead, please.
Let's talk about education. Let's talk about GM Web3. And you brought on someone like John Kraske. What are those pieces that John brings from the Web2 world that's really helping with the education and the adoption and the brand work? Because that's what John's doing. John's a brand guy. How is he helping, spread the word, the message? And what is that? What are those pieces that he's out there communicating on the brand's behalf?
Yeah, mainly, GMW3, which John runs, is it's our event arm, it's our community. It's basically a bridge between Web 2 and Web 3. Our clients are Web 2 companies. They are the MasterCards, the Red Bull, the Tommy Hilfiger, and so on. And those are the executives from these companies that want to understand Web 3, want to understand why they need to be in the metaverse. And so instead of just talking in our own echo chamber, from Web 3 to Web 3, we go out and we talk to Web 2 executives that want to learn about Web 3. And we found a niche in building that community. No one was really targeting these people as a bridge. There was the Web 2 guys and there were the Web 3 guys, but no real bridge between the two. So John has been, has a big network and a big following on LinkedIn, and has been quite instrumental in facilitating those conversations. So a lot of people learn about LandVault through him, and eventually, some of them become potential clients, and
it's a great business tool.
They become just people that we like to hang out with.
I mean, it's great. I mean, it's kind of an ecosystem there too, and that's another reason why we're doing this show, right? I mean, we're very candid about it. We get to have incredible conversations with folks like yourself, establish ourselves as a thought leader, educate, and at the end of the day, yes, I mean, we live in a we are looking to generate business, but it's by showing that we understand this space. And we're learning from folks like you. So thank you for being one of our alpha dogs, as we like to say.
Thanks for having me, man.
Definitely. Yeah, I want to, as we're kind of getting closer to the end of the show, I want to think about the future. And I'm curious, Sam, have you heard of this thing called Chat GPT?
No, I have not.
Tell me more.
It's this nascent technology that not many people know. You recently you were in a Fast Company article giving some of your thoughts on the metaverse, and then kind of the introduction of new technologies that are starting to be very exponential to people, and they can kind of see it in their face, right? You mentioned the article that generative AI and the metaverse are complementary technologies. Could you elaborate on how you envision the two working together?
I think it's related to what I was saying before, right? The cost and the time that it takes to build something in the metaverse, as you've experienced yourself in the sandbox, is just too long. It works for agencies like LandVault, it works for brands, but if I want to quickly create a shop front, publish it, get users, there's just too much friction right now. And one of the reasons is because creating good 3D content takes time. It's a skill. It's very complicated. And so I think generative AI would play a major role there because a lot of things can be templated. It's called procedural generation. So, whether you might need a shop, or you might need a concert venue, or maybe you need a stadium. We can use templates for those that can then be customized. But instead of spending, 2 days doing that, the first 50% of the work could be done in a minute.
Yep.
And so you immediately start saving time, and then you can upload your own assets. You can tweak what you want to do, and then by doing that, you reinforce the model, so the next person has an extra template to work from. So I think that's going to be one of the tools that creates this WordPress moment that I created, that I defined earlier, where suddenly anyone can build, deploy, monetize content like this, just like on the internet. And I think that's one of the tools that will bring the metaverse into the mainstream.
Yeah, I was reading about people. I might say this website wrong. Is it Replit or Replete? Where you can execute code and it executes it incredibly fast. Where people were essentially putting just their thoughts onto ChatGPT, and then taking that code, putting it on Replit, and then it quickly creates the app or the idea that you want.
It's insane.
And it's happening so fast. And then I'm hearing about these apps that are really becoming just no code, plug and play as far as AI. And it's crazy how much it's democratizing the ability for people to create apps and things that you would have once had to become a software engineer or a developer or something in that way. It's really democratizing that piece.
But is it going to push people out of jobs? Right.
I guess the question is, how much of those are actually usable? How much of those are actually providing a real value to the users, right? Because if you look at,
that's fair.
I mean, Roblox
commercially viable, right?
Roblox is, it's 99% junk, right? Most games
That's
are
true.
not good games.
That's true.
Websites on the internet, you have 2 billion websites. Like, I think there's maybe 100 million websites that are actually usable. Most of
that
it
are
is
not
junk.
porn.
So that's another.
Let's be honest here, folks.
Well, I think as you democratize things, right, you also you enable non-experts to take part of the
glitch.
We're glitching out again, Sam.
Yeah. It's a connection somewhere.
Yeah.
We'll have the editing team try to fix that up. Maybe it'll actually record. Maybe it'll actually go through, and then we'll stitch it together.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, there's something with you and I are connecting fine.
Yeah.
Maybe so far.
Damn.
Again, that was the most profound, incredible breakthrough thing I've ever heard in my entire life, and I can't wait to share that with the audience.
But no jokes. No,
it
jokes.
might actually record on the recording. It actually might get through. We'll edit.
There was something you said that was.
Yeah, he said.
He
probably said that's not what I said.
No. But no, seriously. I didn't catch the very end, but I caught most of the beginning. And one thing you said, like it's Twitter. It's just Twitter, right? The democratization of maybe information. I call it democratization of finance, right? But with the democratization of finance, everybody's a macro investor. Everybody knows everything that's about to happen. You have people that are telling, bank CEOs that have been doing this for 30 years what they should be doing. So I think you really hit the nail on the head in terms of, as much as I am excited that everybody will be a creator, I have to remember my two sisters who I love dearly. But if I can imagine them with these tools and what they would create, well, I'm sure we wouldn't be visiting those. So I think you're
Right.
you're dead right in terms of it's going to create a lot of bullshit.
Yeah, no, and I think it's funny that how people think that, everyone should have the right to be a creator, but a creator by definition is, you need talent, right? It's not just saying I want to be a creator.
Yep.
It's the same on, Spotify. You hear a lot of people that says, oh, Spotify is just prioritizing the big artists. Like the algorithm always prioritizes the big artists. Like, yeah, the reason why they're big artists because
Yep.
most people like what they're doing. Whereas, a guy that just records songs in his bedroom,
Yeah.
maybe he doesn't deserve to be a big artist because it's
Right.
damn hard to be a big artist. So I don't think, it's funny to me that, there's that almost entitlement that everyone, because the tools are there, everyone deserves to be successful on those tools. It's like, no, there's work and there is talent that has to go into it. So yeah, I mean, the jury's still out on that, but I think the democratization at all costs is not necessarily a good thing. Most, they are experts in most professions, and I think those people would continue to deliver the best content.
Sam, I'm supremely curious then about one thing to segue that. How do you feel about the way we're watering down this space so that we can onboard the next billion, right? So you mentioned something earlier, and I think it's the lowest common denominator. I can't freaking stand when people are like, well, we need to adopt my mom and dad. Like, no, my mom and dad didn't grow up with an exponential technology in their hand, but my sisters did. They grew up with a cell phone in their hand. So I think it makes a hell of a lot more sense to think about them. But in terms of how we're watering things down, right? Don't call it a wallet, call it an account. Don't call it an NFT, call it a digital collectible. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like we should be educating people on the foundational pieces, the pioneering, that piece, so they understand why it is that we're even building this? Why are we taking out central authorities? Why is there Bitcoin? Do you feel like that? Or should we just make it all make sense for everybody and let's just keep it moving?
Yeah, I think most people don't really care about that. It's the same as the, privacy, data privacy, right? Like most people on the internet actually do not care. This whole, in Europe, we had the GDPR thing where you need to ask consent for data to be shared. And now we have all these pop-ups that you have to click first before you get to the website. And the user experience is worse. And most people hate that. They rather just take my data. What does it matter if you know my email? So I think it's the same concept here that we kind of lost into the technicalities. What we need to do is to build applications that provide value to users and provide more value than the Web 2 application that they use. Web 3 would only survive if it provides more value than Web 2. And generally value, if you boil it down, it's either save money or save time, right? That's another thing that, Gary Vee says, right? Like Amazon, you save time because you can order quickly. You also save money because it's cheaper. Uber, you save time. So pretty much everything is about those two things.
Two biggest commodities.
So it's biggest commodities, right? So I think, Web3, that's what we need to do. If you want a Web3 e-commerce platform, well, it better be either cheaper than Amazon or have more products or whatever. But the fact that it's Web3 alone is not a value proposition. That is just a technology that you use to supposedly get better results. So, that's what we focus on in the metaverse specifically. We see that even if you don't believe that the metaverse is the future of the internet, as a brand today, you can reach better engagement. You can, for certain products, not everything, you can get better conversion rate in the metaverse because it's immersive, because it's entertaining. You can build deeper relationship with customers, which are proven to generate, more revenue in the future. So there are already today tangible KPIs that you can use to generate better ROI that you would use on any other platform. But we're not just saying you have to be in the metaverse because it's the metaverse. No, you have to be in the metaverse because for this particular problem, this could solve your problem better than Google ads, Facebook ads, and any other channel around here. That's the only way that Web3 will win. It has to be competitive.
I love it. Kevin, bring us home here.
I was just going to say, that was like a perfect way to wrap this up.
And
Sam,
no glitches as well.
No glitches. Thanks for the
Brilliant.
cue up. Yes. All right. So before we wrap up the show, I just wanted to give the audience some of the takeaways from our chat here and make sure they all key in on.
We actually run ChatGPT during the interview, and it gives us the wrap-up questions in advance. Do we? Or maybe not. That's next level shit right there.
Learning from past experiences, such as Sam's time at Kaut, and applying those insights to build better products and services in the gaming industry in the metaverse. The value of understanding user engagement, game psychology, and behavioral science, which Sam gained at his time at Octalysis Group, as well as Kaut. and can be applied to create more engaging experience in virtual spaces. And the role of education and driving adoption of Web3 technologies, as evidenced by your work. And John, I'll give you a shout out, John Kraske, on Good Morning Web3. Explore the metaverse and Web3 space, understand the opportunities they present for content creators. We're moving to a time where everybody might have the ability to be a content creator. Don't just take that lightly. Build yourself up, grow, develop, and build something better for tomorrow, for your kids, for whatever. All right, let's wrap this up. Thank you all for tuning in for today's episode of the Immutable Mindset, where we had an incredible conversation with our guest, Sam Hooper. We hope this discussion has sparked your curiosity, inspired you to think more about the future of technology and how it will reshape our lives. Sam, let the people know where they can find you on social.
I'm on Twitter at Sam Huber, and similarly on LinkedIn. Otherwise, you can also follow the LandVault, which is our metaverse company, on Twitter as well.
Definitely check out LandVault. I would highly suggest everybody do that. Perfect. Thank you so much. Once again, thank you, Sam, for joining us today. Really appreciate you. We look forward to having everybody in the audience back next episode. Stay curious, keep exploring, and always challenge the status quo. Thank you.